I figured why not, because I don't want to save this to a possible live stream on Friday or whatever. Well, today I'm going to be responding to a Kyle Kulinski video about the debt ceiling and using the 14th Amendment to do so. So what he did this video yesterday or the day before, I don't remember exactly, but he talks about how Biden and McCarthy are struggling to negotiate a deal for the debt ceiling, and his brilliant idea, is to use the 14th Amendment to just say, oh yeah, the debt ceiling is unconstitutional. Well, I'm gonna let him make his argument, and then I'm going to respond with, what is the debt ceiling? Why? What was the context behind the debt ceiling? Why it's being used today. And another thing is, he also talks about minting the $1 trillion coin, which is somehow supposed to end the debt ceiling crisis. I don't know how, but I did a lot of reading the last couple of days and looked into that too. So it's very interesting to learn what I've learned, and I'm going to assume that he did none of this research, because he doesn't do research. He just likes to believe, whatever he believes is right automatically by definition. So he doesn't have to look it up. That seems to be his attitude. So let's try it again. Let Kyle make his case. Kyle make his case. Yeah, it's definitely in the morning. I'll tell you that much, because I'm all over the place this morning. But yeah, let's let Kyle make his case though, because I think it's fair, to give him a chance before I completely make fun of him. So here we go.
Even if it's just $2 a month or whatever on Patreon, link below. Support Crystal Kyle and Friends on
La la la.
Substack. So there's an article here in Politico talking about the debt ceiling fight. Now, for those of you who are longtime political junkies, you know that every couple years or so, we have this debt ceiling fight. So what is the debt ceiling? Well, the debt ceiling is just an arbitrary cap on our debt. And the reason I call it arbitrary is because it's made up. And also, this fight is about money that we've already spent. So basically, there is no real fight. The question is, hey, is the United States going to continue to allow everybody to view us with full faith and confidence and have full faith and credit in the U.S. government? If we don't address this situation, we're talking about a situation where we enter a depression here in the U.S. and could even spark a worldwide recession or depression. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but it is definitely accurate. The dollar is the world reserve currency, at least at this moment. I don't know how long that's going to last, right? And this is not something, you're playing with fire. You're playing with fire. And the overwhelming majority of countries don't have a debt limit because it's unnecessary and it would only cause chaos, as we're currently going through right now. And so the Republicans are using this to try to extract concessions. Now, the things that they want, you're not going to be surprised to hear this, are a cut in virtually every single program that helps the poor and the working class. That's what they want. They want, like, work requirements for food stamps, or as it's now called, the SNAP program. They basically want to take a hatchet. They wanted a 22% cut across the board on government spending for regular people. That's what they wanted. Originally, they wanted to cut Medicaid and Social Security and Medicare as well, but they ran into a brick wall on that front. That brick wall was called Joe Biden and Donald Trump being united on an issue. So they're trying to find other ways to cut
there's no way there's zero chance that in an election year, which is next year, that either party cuts Social Security or Medicare. Zero. There's zero chance that it's going to happen. So that was ridiculous, even to think about. And also, to be fair, I think Kyle did a good job of summarizing what this fight is about. But I will add that this is fake. This debt ceiling crisis is fake, because there's no reason for it. You have the Republicans basically taking hostages and saying, "Oh yeah, if you don't agree to our cuts, then we will destroy the world economy." Essentially, why am I doing this? I don't know, doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, if we'll destroy the world economy. So that means that you have Joe Biden and Democrats basically, they're going to have to give in. They're going to have to give in. There's no way that and agree to some cuts because there's no way in hell that they're going to let the U.S. economy just crater because of the debt ceiling. The United States government failing to pay its debts. There's no way they're going to let that happen. But Kyle has an idea using the 14th Amendment. So I will let him get to that, and then I'll go. Then I'll respond to that. But
the federal budget to screw working people.
Hold on. Let me go ahead a little bit.
Print a coin that's and his own voters who he made promises to. Now, the plot thickens because Biden has a number of things he could do just on his own.
So this is where he starts with his solutions to. Let me get my notes ready because I'm kind of all over the place here. Because all this can be looked up online. Everything I'm going to tell you guys right now, all can be looked up online. So I'm getting my notes ready on my phone. So everything that I just told you, you can look it up all on the internet. You can fact check me, and then we go from there. But these are Kyle's solutions. So I'm going to do this because that's ultimately what it is. They're solutions. So let's hear them out.
To circumvent this crisis.
On his own. That's the key, I mean, in my opinion, it tends to think that a lot of these professional left people tend to be authoritarian, especially when it comes to their own policies, like their own pet projects and policies. So it's like, oh, well, the president can do it on his own. All you got to do is circumvent Congress, right? I mean, that's not authoritarian, is it? I mean, yeah, it definitely is, but it doesn't matter to leftists like Kyle because ultimately, as long as his policies are in place, he doesn't care how authoritarian the president is. But imagine if Trump did something like this, what he's going to suggest. Well, how would Kyle react? I guarantee you he would not have the same reaction as he does now. Because it's all partisan. It's all partisan for Kyle. So let's actually let him make this case, though, and then I'll continue.
In fact, it's not even a crisis. This is a crisis of their own making. Biden can effectively turn around, and one idea that's been floated is print a coin that's worth $1 trillion, and then that ends the crisis on its own. Of course, since the U.S., we have our own sovereign currency, and this is something Trump even pointed out accurately. When you have your own sovereign currency, you could just print money. You just print money and subvert this crisis. So that's one way he can approach it. Another thing people have floated, and honestly, I think this idea is better, is use the 14th Amendment to basically abolish the debt ceiling. And there's specific wording in the 14th Amendment that pretty unequivocally gives the president the ability to say, we're not going through this anymore. We're done. So, of course, Biden prematurely decides, let me take all of the options where I can do it unilaterally off the table. Oh my God.
All right. So this is where Kyle wants to get authoritarian on us and says, well, the president can do it on his own, right? Well, now we need to discuss, what the debt ceiling is, why it came about, and this whole $1 trillion coin thing, which I'll probably get to a little bit later. But for now, we're going to talk about the debt ceiling. So before 1917, the law, what created the debt ceiling, hold on, let me make sure I get this correct, was the I did it again. Second Liberty Bond Act in 1917. That created the debt ceiling. So that created what we know as the debt ceiling today. Before 1917, if the United States needed to borrow money, what the Congress would have to do is pass a bill every single time they needed to borrow money. So this is from the founding of the country to 1917. So about 100 plus years there. And every time the Congress needed to borrow money, they would pass bill after bill after bill. Okay, we can borrow this much, we'll borrow this much, we'll borrow that much. So in order to pay our bills. So now after 1917, they would tell the Treasury basically, okay, we can borrow up to this amount to pay our debts, which is a number which which today is like 31.2 trillion. I think we can pay our bills up to that point. Once that's spent, then then we hit the debt ceiling, and we can't pay our bills anymore because Congress has not authorized more money to pay our bills. So that's what leads to this debt ceiling crisis that we're talking about. So the Second Liberty Bond Act in 1917 passed in order to do this, in order to fund the war, which is World War One. And that way, the government was allowed to take out what was called Liberty bonds to pay for the war. Because this is before today. This is before the modern era. At the time, we had to pay for our wars up front. So in order to do that, the government had to issue bonds at an interest. So if give me a second, I actually wrote this down, even though I'm not sure how relevant it is, but still, I kind of wrote this down. So the Second Liberty Loan Act established a $15 billion aggregate limit or debt ceiling. So in 1917, it was the debt ceiling was $15 billion, which is not a lot of money, but in those days it was a shit ton of money. And you couldn't believe the government spent that much money on the amount of government bonds issued, allowing $3 billion more offered at 25 years at 4% interest. So there's multiple of these bonds out there throughout the war. I mean, and the interest rates was higher and higher in order to get people to buy these bonds so they can pay for the war. So when the legislation talked about aggregate limit, that's what the debt ceiling is. At the time, it was called aggregate limit, so you couldn't borrow more than that amount of money, which is $15 billion in 1917. That number today is 31.2 trillion, which I've looked up, which is like, oh wow, I mean, it's insane. So that's why the debt ceiling was created. It was also created because conservatives in Congress wanted to do fiscal responsibility. Is that familiar to you guys? Because that's what Republicans claim today. They want to have fiscal responsibility. So yeah, that's the history of the debt ceiling. Why the debt ceiling came about is in order to fund the war, and instead of having to pass a bill every time the military needed money and the government needed money for the war, they decided to create a debt ceiling or aggregate limit, and that Congress pre-authorizes the Treasury to finance in order to pay for a war, which is still around today because because it was never a political issue until now. It was standard. You could just raise it whenever you needed to, and that's it. And then keep borrowing money to pay our bills. Now it's a political issue because everything is hyper-partisan on both sides, not just Republicans, also Democrats. So now it's a political issue. So that's the background, that's the history, and of the debt ceiling. So now I'm going to let Kyle get to the 14th Amendment before I explain the 14th Amendment and why I think the left's case on using the 14th Amendment to end the debt ceiling is at worst dubious and at best a stretch, because it's like I don't see how you can even possibly use the 14th Amendment to abolish something Congress created. Because remember, Congress has the power of the purse. In other words, that means they control the money. They have the keys to the safe. So for the executive branch, for Kyle and leftists, some liberals to claim, oh, well, the executive branch can say, oh, yeah, by the way, the debt ceiling is unconstitutional because of the 14th Amendment. So that would definitely make its way to the court system. Excuse me. So I'm going to let Kyle continue here because I've been babbling on long enough and I'm boring you with the history, I'm sure. So let's just keep going.
Oh, Joe, what are you doing? What are you doing? And in the process of doing that, he also disrespects the base of his own party and the progressive wing. So this is in Politico. They say Biden's...
Who cares? Who cares? Honestly, progressives and Democratic Party deserve to be disrespected. They deserve to be slapped around. Why? Because Democrats aren't progressive. They are not progressive. Not even close. The party itself, they're all... At best, they're center left. At worst, they're straight up corporatists, and they love taking their corporate cash. So that's even most of the party's voters. The partisan Democrats, the normie Democrats, they're not progressive. They're not really leftists. They're more like centrists, the voters. So which is why they like Obama, which is like Hillary Clinton, which is why they like Joe Biden, which is why they like Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, all of these fucking cheap Democrats, who suck. That's why. And Kyle's insistence on going to the Democratic Party and progressive Democrats, going to the Democratic Party are useless. I don't have time for them. I have no patience for them. So whenever they get mocked by the president, by the White House, and by the Democratic Party, I laugh and it entertains me and I love it. So rant done. I digress. Let's keep going.
This 14th Amendment message to progressives, it ain't gonna happen. The president's advisors fear such a move would trigger a legal battle, undermine global faith in U.S. creditworthiness, and damage the economy. All right, so let's break this down one by one here. Would it trigger a legal battle? It absolutely would. But guess what? In the meantime, you wouldn't have a debt ceiling.
What?
So go ahead, let the courts fight it out.
Wait. Did he? Here's the thing, Kyle. What he missed. This is what he missed here, or doesn't tell his audience. The fact of the matter is, yes, there's going to be legal battle, but the debt ceiling will still be there because any federal judge who put a hold on Biden's executive order, decision, whatever, into the courts battle it out. So they're going to put a hold on it or stay on it. I forget what word exactly it is. So basically, it stays Biden's order until the courts rule, which, i.e., the Supreme Court would have to weigh in because there's no way that the lower courts would make that type of decision. It would have to make its way to the Supreme Court eventually. So there'd be a hold on Biden's order. So the debt ceiling would still be there. So I don't know why he's acting like the federal court wouldn't put a hold on his decision. And like, oh, well, the debt ceiling, there's no debt ceiling. Yes, there is, Kyle. It's still there because federal judge didn't put a hold on it. So what are you talking about? I mean, he doesn't understand like the basics of how judges rule and what the law is, how that works. Because a judge isn't going to say, okay, let's just allow Biden to do this without a hold until the federal courts rule and Supreme Court rules, which will probably take months. So, yeah, that makes no sense what he said there. Jesus, I mean, it's like basic. This is like basic law that any political junkie should know, but doesn't. He doesn't know. Or he doesn't tell his audience for some reason if he does know.
Let it go to the courts. But in the meantime, there's no crisis because the debt ceiling has effectively been abolished.
No, Biden can't. No, that's not how it works. Again, the judge who put a hold on it, any federal judge who put a hold on Biden's decision while it gets to the courts. So you would have a debt ceiling crisis still. It's just that the until the courts rule, unless the courts rule quickly within the next week and a half or so, which I don't see that happening. So this is invoking the 14th Amendment is not a solution for that reason. Well, there's other reasons why too, but let's let our little Kyle here keep going.
Number one. Now, maybe down the road they change it, but I tend to doubt that, and I'll explain why in a second. It would undermine global faith in U.S. creditworthiness. Well, you know what would do that even more? If we plunge into this unknown territory of crossing the debt limit.
Which would happen anyway if you invoke the 14th Amendment because the Republicans would challenge it in court. A federal judge put a hold on it until it gets to the courts, and the Republicans would not be inclined to negotiate because you decided to be authoritarian and decide to circumvent Congress. Great idea, Kyle. I'm glad that people like a person like Kyle isn't president because we'd be fucked.
Because it looks unlikely that we're going to get some sort of a deal, right? Certainly a deal that could hold the House, the Senate, Biden, and Republicans together. So what would undermine global faith in U.S. creditworthiness is not doing this. That would undermine it more. Doing this would, even if you say it's a bad option, it is definitely a less bad option. And then they say it would damage the economy. Well, again, what would damage the economy more? Not doing it would damage the economy more. Now, also, by the way,
and I love how this guy pontificates. Like he's 100% right. I mean, in his head, he thinks 100% right. This authoritarian move is the only way to avoid a debt ceiling crisis. Yes. Whoops. Ah, shit. I dropped my phone. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, this is like Kyle's and a lot of liberals are like this. Their flex is authoritarian. Like, oh yeah, I mean, Congress is against us. Oh fuck it, let's just have the president do everything, and let them sue us. But at least we got stuff done for the American people, and blah 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 blah. Blah, blah. All right, so let's let our wannabe Eminem here keep going.
By the way, just the idea that it's going to trigger a legal battle and they're going to fight it through the courts. The one consistent with our court system is the overwhelming majority of the time they side with capital. Now, guess what? This is a rare instance where capital doesn't want the chaos. They don't want this debt limit fight. They don't want to risk plunging into a global recession and or depression. And so would the courts really snub their nose up at basically capital united in this country? I tend to doubt it.
So what he's saying is, well, I mean, the corporations are on our side, guys. So there's no way that the federal court system and the Supreme Court would rule against corporations, would they? That's his argument. And like, the Supreme Court are full of strict constitutionalists, at least the conservative ones, which basically means they follow or allegedly they're supposed to follow like the Constitution to the letter. So the Constitution isn't a living document to the conservatives. It's strict. What it says is what we got to do, and that's it. So allowing a democratic president to basically be authoritarian, to use a 14th Amendment in a way that was not intended to be used in order to avoid a debt ceiling crisis, a crisis which is manufactured. I don't see the Supreme Court doing that. I don't see conservatives in the Supreme Court doing that. What they would do is kick it back to Congress, like, you motherfuckers need to pass something and quickly. We're not going to weigh in on this. Or if we do weigh in, we're going to say it's unconstitutional, kick it back to Congress. It's very unlikely that the Supreme Court would side with capital, as Kyle put it, just to avoid a debt ceiling crisis. So I don't see that happening. It's kind of ridiculous to put that hope on the court. Like, hey, the courts, hey guys, the courts are corporatists because the conservatives are corporatists. So they're going to want to side with the corporations and stop the debt ceiling crisis from happening. So yeah, that's our hope. You see that's why we can do the 14th Amendment, because we can do this authoritarian thing, because the courts will side with us because they want to protect corporations. You see how that works? So yeah, please use 14th Amendment, Joe Biden. Please use. Dude, they're conservative. They're not. There's I don't see them doing this just to save corporations and their interests. That's up to Congress. So like these Supreme Court people are going to throw it back to Congress. Like, you need to come with a deal and you come with it quick. Anyways, even if it's just I'm getting a headache just thinking about how stupid that line of thought is by Kyle. And look at his smug look on his face too. Hold on, he's here in the corner. Wait, hold on. Is there a way to get rid of myself there? Let me see. Here we go. Look at that smug look on his face on the right hand side there in the corner here. Like, oh yeah, I nailed it, guys. I nailed it. I'm Kyle Kulinski. I'm always fucking right, and I'm never wrong. And even if I'm wrong, I'll make excuses and I'll blame somebody else for their mistake. Because Kyle Kulinski's never wrong. He's always right. I'm always right, guys. I can't do his voice, but his ridiculous voice. But yeah, I mean I hate that smug look he gets. All right, let's let him keep going here.
I tend to doubt it. Okay, so here's what they say. Progressive lawmakers renewed their call for President Joe Biden to bypass Congress to avert a default after the abrupt cancellation of debt ceiling talks on Friday. But the White House remains resistant. It issued a subdued statement indicating it sees no reason to pull the plug on talks. And privately, its message has been even blunter. So what they're referring to here is a bunch of progressive lawmakers signed a letter to President Biden and said, hey, let's stop messing around with this thing. Are you crazy? Let's go ahead and just lift the debt ceiling using the 14th Amendment. And Biden's reaction is, I know what you're talking about. We're working with the Republicans, and everything will come to pass. Everything will be smooth. Well, if you look at their demands, it is by definition not smooth, because even if you give in to 20... Let's go ahead and just lift the debt ceiling using the 14th Amendment.
Sorry, I kind of got spaced out there. Give me a minute.
Message has been even blunter. So what they're referring to here is a bunch of progressive lawmakers signed a letter to President Biden and said, hey, let's stop messing around with this thing. Are you crazy? Let's go ahead and just lift the debt ceiling using the 14th Amendment. And Biden's reaction is, I know what you're talking about. We're working with the Republicans, and everything will come to pass. Everything will be smooth.
This is where Kyle Kulinski acts like that. This isn't. Again, he says it's manufactured, and it is, but then he turns around and acts like this is real. Like this is where he becomes Mean Gene Oakland, basically, and basically tells his audience, "Well, this is 100% real, and this is a crisis, and if we don't raise the debt ceiling, then the world economy is screwed, and be scared, and blah 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 blah." It's like, no, this is what's going to happen. It's going to go. Let's say it expires June. The debt ceiling reached June 3rd at midnight. Okay, that's an example. That what happened is at June 2nd, 11:50 p.m. Eastern, they'll have a deal. They'll have some kind of deal where no matter what, where there'll be a lot of social cuts and there'll be spending freezes or whatever it takes, but there'll be a deal. And it'll pass through both houses of Congress and the president will sign it before midnight. Guaranteed. Because that's what's going to happen. They're gonna drag it out to the last possible second for coming to a deal. And Kyle acts like, no, it's not going to happen. No. I don't see a path for a deal, guys. So we're going to definitely go over the debt ceiling limit. And having and fear mongering about that to his audience. So yeah, not going to happen. There'll be a deal 10 minutes before the debt ceiling is actually reached, but there'll be a deal because there always is. This is what happened back in 2012 during the Obama administration when they were making a big deal out of this. There was a deal at the last possible second. I remember Obama doing a press conference late, like around 9, 10 o'clock at night, explaining they got a deal done and we saved the country and how Obama's all great and stuff. So that's what's going to happen again. I mean, there's no way that they come to a deal tomorrow or today. They're going to wait until June 3rd, 10 minutes before the debt ceiling is reached. That's what's going to happen. I guarantee it. And if I'm wrong, then we're fucked. But I don't think I'm wrong. So maybe if I'm wrong, something, I don't know what I'll do. But yeah, let's keep going with Kyle here.
Well, if you look at their demands, it is by definition not smooth, because even if you give in to 20% of their demands, you're screwing your own base and the country.
So what do you expect them to do? They're not going to do the 14th Amendment. They're not going to do the 14th Amendment. They're not going to mint the $1 trillion coin, something I'll get to, because he's going to get to in a minute. So what do you want? I don't understand what he wants. Does he want him just to plow ahead with 14th Amendment? Even though I explained earlier that the judge is going to put a hold on it, whatever ruling or executive order Biden gives out. So they're going to put a hold on it while it makes its way through the court system. And the court system is really slow. So the debt ceiling is going to be reached no matter what. So there's going to have to be some sort of deal with the Republicans. So whose fault is that? I'll get to that at the end, but I'm going to let Kyle keep going for now because I want to get to that towards the end.
Senior Biden officials have told progressive activists and lawmakers in recent days that they do not see the 14th Amendment, which says, listen to this, guys, this is really something. The validity of the public debt cannot be questioned. So in other words, the whole idea of this arbitrary debt ceiling is unconstitutional.
Wait, what? Oh, fuck me. Fuck me sideways. Oh my god. Alright, now what I'm going to do, which because it's not listed here and Kyle doesn't bother reading the whole, I think it's section 4 of the 14th Amendment. I could be wrong, but let me say, 14th Amendment, section 4. Okay, that's what it is. I'm going to read you the whole thing because it's a paragraph. It's not just one sentence. And by the way, all this can be looked up online. You don't need me to, you don't need to believe me. Look it up for yourselves. So I'm going to read you the whole paragraph now. The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payments, pensions, bounties, and services of suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection, rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss of emancipation or any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. So that's the whole paragraph of the 14 of that of what this right there, what the validity of the public debt. So I got this from the congressional website. So I'm going to show you this because I think it's pretty important. So there it is right there. I wasn't going to show it, but I figured, look, why not? Yeah, this one, this is where I got this from. It's from congress.gov. So there it is right there. The key word is, and this is, and I think you guys may have gotten this, but let me reread it again. The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payments and pensions and bounties of services and suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. That's the whole sentence right there, which is highlighted there. That's the whole sentence. Hold on, I already highlighted it. I don't know why I did that. You see the highlight there? That's the whole sentence. So it's clear that it's just referring to including debts incurred for payments, pensions, and bounties for services suppressing insurrection or rebellion shall not be questioned. So it's specifically talking about debts incurred during the war, during the Civil War, let's say. To be fair, I say during the war because we've had so many fucking wars that I don't want people to get confused. So just because of that, ending sentence there, including debts incurred for payments of pensions and bounties for services and suppressing insurrection or rebellion shall not be questioned. Just that sentence right there makes Kyle's point illegitimate. Just that sentence right there. But even if you ignore that sentence, like what Kyle is doing, because he's ignoring that, or doesn't even know because the media hasn't covered that part. They haven't bothered to cover that part. But even if you ignore that sentence, it's still you still can't use the 14th Amendment because Congress controls the purse. So if Congress controls the purse, they get to set debt limits however they feel like it, whether the executive likes it or not. That's how our system works. Congress controls the power of the purse. The Constitution makes very clear in that. So the executive, no matter what, cannot just turn around and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're going to ignore any debt ceiling or any law that Congress has passed." And that's because that's inconvenient. It's inconvenient to me as the president. It's politically inconvenient. So because I don't want to make a deal with Republicans that destroys my chances of reelection, which was going to end up happening. He's going to have to come to some sort of deal. There's no way that Biden is going to allow the country to reach the debt limit and fuck all knows what's going to happen because I don't know what's going to happen. The economists, nobody knows what's going to happen. So when that happens, we're going to definitely default. But after that, who knows? We're in Fucksville at that point. So that right there, that little sentence right there, debts incurred for payments and pensions and bounties for services of suppressing insurrection or rebellion shall not be questioned. That right there just invalidates Kyle's argument and the left's argument on using the 14th Amendment. But even without that, like I already stated, there's no way that you can use 14th Amendment. But let Kyle keep going here because I'm now babbling away like some kind of fool. So let's do that. Why is this not working? All right, there we go. Let's get rid of that. Let's go back here to our favorite Mr. Kulinski here. All right, so let's play this now.
So you have a conflict in our laws. You have a conflict in, hey, here's what the Supreme Court says, or excuse me, here's what the Constitution says, and here's what, a federal law says. So there's a conflict there. So Biden gets to choose which law he thinks is going to be the law of the land.
No, that's not how it works. Oh my God! Did you hear that? He literally said, "Well, since there's a conflict in the law, guys, the president, being authoritarian here in this example, gets to choose what law is valid." The fuck? No, that's not how it works. How it works is the court system would have to decide which law is valid. The executive can't say, "Oh yeah, by the way, since there's a conflict in the law, I'm going to choose to follow this law and not this law." That's how I'm going to do it because, I'm the president and I'm the ultimate authority in the United States. No, that's not how it works. The president cannot just choose which law to follow and which law not to follow. What needs to happen needs to go to the court system to figure out either that or have Congress pass a new law basically saying, okay, this is the law of the land. And the president signs it and that's it. Or the courts decide, one or the other. The executive can't go like, well, there's a conflict in the law, so fuck it. I'm going to do what I want to do. There's not a damn thing that anybody can do about it. No, that's not how it works. Get a load how authoritarian this fucker is. So, but he's only authoritarian on the things he wants, on political issues he wants, or bills that he wants. He's not authoritarian when it comes to Republicans, and he's not going to say Republicans should be able to pass tax cuts without and circumvent Congress. He's never going to say that because he's against it. But if he's, in favor of something like lifting the debt ceiling, now all of a sudden he's authoritarian. You see how that works? See the double standard he has? So let's let him keep going here.
That would be an easy way to handle this. I mean, that wording is pretty straightforward. The validity of the public debt cannot be questioned. And he's saying, take that off the table. It's unbelievable. As a viable means of circumventing debt ceiling negotiations. They have argued that doing so would be risky and destabilizing, according to three people familiar with the discussions. Again, this is maddening because what's more destabilizing is not using the 14th Amendment.
No, the reason why the administration is saying that, or the staffers are saying that, is because if Biden were to do this, it's the court's gonna put a hold on it. They're not gonna just let him just say until they figure out what the Constitution says and what's constitutional and what isn't. They're gonna put a hold on it. The judge's gonna sign an order to hold his decision until it gets to the court system. So the debt ceiling will still be there. He's acting like he's assuming that, he can make the decision and just, and while it goes to the courts, it'll be, the debt ceiling won't exist until the Supreme Court rules. No. They're going to put a hold on it. They're going to say, we're going to put a hold on this order, executive order, whatever, until we rule on it. That's how the court system's always worked. Like, I don't understand why he doesn't understand that basic system, basic way how our courts work. So I'm baffled that a political junkie like Kyle doesn't understand that. So let's keep going.
The White House has studied the issue for months, with some aides concluding that Biden would likely have the authority to declare the debt limit unconstitutional as a last-ditch way to sidestep default. But Biden advisors have told progressives that they see it as a poor option overall, fearing such a move would trigger a pitched legal battle, undermine global faith in U.S. creditworthiness, and damage the economy. We already addressed every single one of those points.
And they're all wrong. Let's be clear about it. They're all wrong. The administration's actually right here. They're going to have to suck it up and make a deal with Republicans, and it's going to suck for them. But there's not much. Biden can't end the debt ceiling crisis on his own at all. So let's keep going.
And every single one of those points fails.
No, they don't. Again, the administration's right here. They cannot just become authoritarian. Like, oh yeah, I'm ending the debt ceiling crisis today. That's not how that works, unfortunately for them.
Officials have warned that even the appearance of more seriously considering the 14th Amendment could blow up talks that are already quite delicate.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would, because Republicans will say, oh yeah, Biden, you think you can do it by yourself? Go fuck yourself. You're not going to do it by yourself. And even if you do, we're definitely not going to negotiate. Republicans are going to dig in their heels and not going to negotiate if Biden decides to do something like that. And we are fucked. We're all beyond fucked if that happens. So, which is why Biden should never, ever even consider, fucking using the 14th Amendment. Because that's going to piss off the Republican Party even further, and they control the House. So that's just a horrible idea, because Democrats don't fight. and Republicans do. So when they're gonna dig in their heels, it's over. They're not gonna negotiate. They don't give a shit. They give zero fucks at that point. And it'd be all Joe Biden's fault, and Joe Biden is definitely going to lose his reelection bid if that happens. So let's keep going.
Good. That is literally exactly what we want. That's exactly what.
Look at how extreme Kyle is. Let me go back a second.
That is literally. Officials have warned that even the appearance of more seriously considering the 14th Amendment could blow up talks that are already quite delicate. Good. That is literally exactly what we want. That's exactly what we want. We want to blow up the talks. Why? Because the Republicans are being unreasonable. They're asking for things that are wildly unpopular and terrible for the country. Quote, they have not ruled it out, said one advisor to the White House, granted anonymity to speak candidly about discussions, but it is not currently part of the plan. The administration's deep skepticism of the 14th Amendment as a workable off-ramp further heightens the stakes surrounding the debt ceiling talks after negotiators briefly walked away from the table on Friday. Guys, this is Joe Biden having Washington, D.C. brain. I mean, he's been there since roughly 1789, and in his mind, it's like, what do you mean? Our honorable Republicans and Democrats will work together for the good of the country.
All right, let me go back a second because I spaced out there. I apologize.
What we want. We want blow up talks that are already quite delicate. Good. That is literally exactly what we.
All right, this guy is just ridiculous. I mean, he's so extreme that he would rather destroy the economy than to fucking negotiate and swallow a bitter pill, which is what's going to end up happening. They're not going to fucking. They're gonna end up swallowing a bitter pill, and it's gonna suck. But they have no choice because Democrats put themselves in this position. Because when they were in power, they could have ended. Hold on, let me just do that. It's easier. They could have ended this crisis. They could have ended this if they wanted to. All they had to do is pass a bill because they control all three branches of government, basically saying the debt ceiling has now been abolished. That's all they had to do. They didn't do that. So this is a crisis they created, and now they're going to have to lie in the bed they made and sleep in it. So they have to make a deal, which is going to suck for them politically because they're going to have to cut some social programs, and they're definitely going to lose their reelection bid. But there's nothing that they can do about it now. They're fucked. And quite frankly, I don't feel bad for Democrats. I don't feel bad for Kyle Kulinski. I don't feel bad for any of these so-called progressive Democrats that go around and arrogantly say, vote for Democrats, because if you don't, you hate us and you hate the country and you want Trump to be president and all this other bullshit. Fuck you. It's your fault. Now you have to deal with the consequences of your actions. Now, let's see. I want to get to the $1 trillion coin because I want to address that before I wrap up.
Part of the plan. The administration's deep skepticism of the 14th Amendment as a workable off-ramp further heightens the stakes surrounding the debt ceiling talks after negotiators briefly walked away from the table on Friday. Guys, this is Joe Biden having Washington, D.C. brain. I mean, he's been there since roughly 1789, and in his mind, it's like, what do you mean? Our honorable Republicans and Democrats will work together for the good of the country. That's not the way it works anymore.
Well, that's a cut right there, which was interesting. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. The bottom line is this. They're going to come to a deal. Neither side is going to want to blow up the economy. Because Wall Street ain't going to be happy at that point. So they're going to have to come up. They're going to come up with some sort of deal. At 11:59 Eastern Standard Time, right before the debt ceiling is reached, there'll be some sort of deal. There'll be a shit ton of social cuts. There's going to be a shit ton of spending freezes. The military budget will be raised because that's what the Republicans want and Democrats do secretly. And we'll all be fucked. So it's going to be a deal. We don't have to worry about this. But Kyle wants to make it seem like, no, there's not going to be a deal. And Republicans are not acting in good faith. Neither side is. Neither side is acting in good faith. This is all fake. This is all bullshit just to do a bunch of spending cuts. That's what this is all about. So let's let them keep going here. Okay.
Or if it ever did, by the way, if it ever worked this way. But look, either he has Washington brain or he kind of secretly wants the cuts to stuff like the food stamp program. Or maybe it's both. He likes this Washington insider game, and he's kind of cool with cuts to certain social safety net programs.
Yes,
they wouldn't be
exactly.
on the table now, would they?
Yes, Biden's cool with a bunch of social safety cuts. That's what he wants, which is why they're dragging this out to try to get as many cuts as possible. Kyle figured it out. It took him 11 minutes into the video, but he finally figured it out. They want social cuts. That's the whole point of this. So did Obama 10 years ago. That was the whole point of this. They want to cut social programs, and Biden and the Democrats are going to agree to it because they want it too. And progressives will fucking whine and complain and bitch and moan about how horrible those cuts are going to be, and then everybody's going to move on. And it'll cost Democrats in the election, which is what Republicans ultimately want. So they're craven politicians, but it's also a brilliant strategy, unfortunately. And they're smart political actors, and Democrats are idiots. And people like Kyle still want to support them because, hey guys, it's so much easier to support Democrats. We don't want to start a third party. We don't want to go through that effort. We don't want to do mutual aid. We don't want to do none of that shit because it's easier just to be Democrats because I'm a rich white guy and my wife is even richer than I am, and and I'm married well now, guys. So now I have my money. I'm good. So I'm not going to fight for a third party. I'm not going to fight for any of my priorities because I don't believe in them. I don't give a shit. That's Kyle's attitude. So let's see. Let's keep going a little bit longer. I want to get to the $1 trillion coin. I don't know when he get guess that.
The White House has acknowledged that the two sides had hit an impasse, and Republican side.
Let me skip ahead a little bit.
That he sees a bipartisan deal as the only option.
A little bit more.
Biden's debt ceiling strategy, exposing the White House to increasingly vocal criticism. People are being unreasonable. And then secretly, privately, he's like, let's negotiate. No, what you're saying publicly is actually correct.
Yeah, he's saying publicly. He's saying, well, yeah, they're being unreasonable. We're not going to negotiate. You have to negotiate. What are you going to do? Allow the economy just to blow up and we reach the fucking debt ceiling and we're all fucked? No, you have to negotiate. You're going to have to swallow some social cuts. And I'm sure Kyle's going to figure out how to defend the administration for it, because that's his job. That's him and his wife's job, to defend the administration, defend the Democratic Party, because that's what they do. That's how they made their millions. Well, they're going to defend the administration once this happens, but it's going to happen. So I hope Kyle has his talking points ready, because at that point he needs to have them ready. All right, let's keep going.
Correct, and you should stick by that. Quote, I think Biden is actually flirting dangerously with a backlash among his own supporters. Oh, you don't say. Instead, the administration has effectively gone all in votes needed to push through a debt ceiling right now. And Republicans turned around and said,
all right, I'm tired of this. I'm going to get to the $1 trillion coin here, because I might have missed it. And quite frankly, I'm not going to go back just to figure out where the whole $1 trillion coin is thing. But Kyle suggests that the $1 trillion coin would be a way. He suggested it early in the video that it would be a way to solve the crisis. So I'm going to give you some background that I wrote down here about that, or I typed into my phone actually. 21st century here, ladies and gentlemen, on the debt ceiling crisis. So here we go. Let's see if I can find it. The idea first came to popularity in 1992 with populist party presidential candidate Bo Gritz. He would show a 5-inch coin, like he would do this during his campaign, and that's where that first popped up, this idea. So and over the years, there's another after that. It didn't really gain too much popularity, but that's the first time the $1 trillion coin was even discussed, some type of a minting of coin. Then later, there was this guy in 2010 named on the internet, an attorney named Carlos Mucha, who went I assume, went by the name Beowulf on blogs. So he had his screen name was Beowulf, and him and his buddies, would talk about the $1 trillion coin. And they talked to, he's a lawyer, so they talked about how Congress has already delegated the authority to the Treasury, to mint this coin if necessary. And blah, 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 blah. And then let's go down. He did this Beowulf character did an interview with Wired magazine, which is what's interesting about Kyle bringing up this idea. That the coin idea came from a December 2009 Wall Street Journal article that talked about how several people were able to generate frequent flyer miles at no cost by ordering or coins in the U.S. Mint with a credit card and offering mileage rewards. So blah blah blah, and then depositing the coins back at the bank to pay off the credit card debt. He was also inspired by a 2008 book, Web of Debt by Ellen Brown, which cited a former Washington official who said the government could order the minting of large coins to pay off the national debt. Beowulf said this is the key here. Beowulf said the $1 trillion coin idea is more rightly attributed to a small discussion group rather than an individual, adding that the group was in it just for the lulz, LOLZ, lulz, her personal amusement. So, in other words, personal amusement, something like that. So, in other words, this $1 trillion coin idea to end the debt ceiling crisis came up through some random, in the modern era at least, in 2010 on, came through an attorney and his buddies online just for the lulz. So they didn't even know whether Congress seriously had the authority or not. They were just fucking around on blogs and the internet, like a lot of us would do on Twitter, fucking around with each other. Oh, we can do this, and the White House can do that, and we have the authority. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. So because we're just amusing each other online with this stuff. We're just speculating online. That's what it was ultimately. So if I'm the left, I really wouldn't use the whole $1 trillion coin thing too much, especially since this came up with a random attorney and his buddies online, just like typing away for their own personal amusement online. So no, just the $1 trillion coin thing is not a good idea. It also could it very likely could possibly lead to inflation. Again, I'm not more inflation. I'm not an economist or anything like that, but that seems to be a real possibility because even more paper money out there now, since that coin gives you extra $1 trillion to work with. So it'll be more paper money out there. Could lead to more inflation. It could lead to God knows what else because we've never done that before. So yeah, that's a terrible idea. The 14th Amendment thing is a no-go. So the only option left for the Democrats and Kyle Kulinski supporting them is to negotiate with Republicans and eat a shit sandwich and accept some social cuts. You're fucked. You should have never been a Democrat. You should have gone third party after 2016. That should have been doing for years, doing mutual aid, and shit like that. But no, Kyle Kulinski's a rich white guy. He's gonna work within the system because him, Crystal Ball, and all of these professional leftists are institutionalists. They want to work within the system. That's why they want to get their change. And it's never gonna work, motherfuckers. Not in a million years. So yeah, I've been going nearly an hour, and I made my points, I think. And hopefully you guys are not bored by this or, fallen asleep by this point or clicked off. So I want to thank everyone for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. A really long one, but yeah, I hope that it's, informative and I did enough for you to understand the context and history behind that ceiling limit and the 14th Amendment and the $1 trillion coin. Hope I did enough to explain so people can understand it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give me a like. Please subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.